Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the TripleJump podcast. It's a video game podcast. My name is Ben.
My name is Peter.
And my name is Ashton.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are we doing?
We're still not
still
better.
not
You two are
better.
still poorly.
Yeah, much better than last week, though. To be fair,
That's good. That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah, last week I was listening back to the podcast and I was like, Jesus Christ, horrible listening for everyone else. This week coughing and spluttering my way through the whole 2 hours. It was. You're welcome, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that. Less coughing today, I think.
Yeah. I'm gradually getting better. The curve is like that. It's going back up. And then occasionally it's like,
Yeah.
You know?
Feel that.
It's like turbulence on a plane. Last night I was like, why do I have a really sore throat? I was like, have I caught a separate thing from Ashton Matthews? And this morning I'm all right. But yeah, to keep having little setbacks.
Goodness
I
gracious.
don't know what it is this
So
time.
fun. I don't know what we've got. It's so fun.
Yeah, it's great.
I don't even want to knock on wood. I've managed to avoid whatever this is so far. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Best of luck.
Thank you. Welcome to our video game podcast. This is where we talk about video games. But before we do that, we of course need to talk about today's sponsor. Each and every week, this podcast is sponsored by a very real video game adjacent sponsor. Helps us keep the single bulb on in this studio. You see there's light coming from over here. Some people may not understand those are studio lights that are plugged into the wall. That's the only actual bulb. There's another set of bulbs there that has two bulbs in it.
Blacked out.
They aren't working. And that light fixture there only has one bulb working. So there is only one bulb technically working in this room. We could fix it at any point, but we'd need to up to 2 advertisers a week.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's just crazy. We can't be doing that.
4 if we wanted to make sure all the bulbs work.
Mental. We need to replace them every week. Ashton, I believe you have the ad read in front of you there.
I do. It's that time of year again, everyone.
Yay.
Franco, Corden, Cameron, Earl Jones, Marston, Blunt, McAvoy, Dean, Jenkins. It's Gamescom 2024.
James.
Oh, it's
Come.
back.
Baby. There's all kinds of Jameses. They're all meeting in Germany for a big James off.
Yes. They're going to gym each other
They're
off.
going to gym each other off.
That's actually the etymology of the word Germany. It's a corruption of James
Yeah.
James Many.
Many Jameses.
Jameses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Gamescom, it's happening next week. There's going to Jeff Keighley's there, but for the honor of the week, he changes his name to James Keighley.
James Keighley, yeah.
And he does a big show, and then there's a couple of other shows, and you can go and beat the booths of James's all around the show floor. We're not going this year. Jenkins is because
He has
he's
to
a
be
James.
there.
Yeah, he has to be
Mad
there.
He's just
story. But
invited.
we said like, can you just go on your own this year, James? Because we've not really got the time. And he was like, I guess. But Gamescom 2024 next week.
How exciting.
Except it's not.
Oh, for God's sake.
It's just stinky Gamescom instead.
Oh, we
Video
went to that,
games.
didn't we?
Yeah, we
I
did.
didn't even twig that was around the same time.
Yeah.
I imagine we would have noticed if it was full of Jameses.
You would have noticed.
That's what
yeah.
normally there would be enough hotels in Cologne for just Gamescom, but because Gamescom happens at the same time, it's chaos.
It's a real nightmare.
It's a huge venue.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that they've managed to fit. I think Gamescom actually is starting to encroach more and more on Gamescom territory, and it's becoming a bit tribal. So
Yeah, it's true.
Good luck
Might
to
have find
James.
a different city.
Yeah,
Good luck to
fingers crossed.
James, although it's not real, of course. We're sponsored by our wonderful patrons over at patreon.com/Team TripleJump. If you go and support us over there, you get access to loads of rewards, including asking questions for this podcast, early access to worst and weirdest games, and exclusive access to episodes of Rules Boss and Main Menu. There's tons of other rewards available there as well, so go and check it out. TripleJump is our website. That's where you can find links to everything we do on YouTube, Twitch, our Discord if you want a cameo message from any of us, TripleJumpShop.com to get some sick merchandise like this, like that, like that, like this, like that.
Sort of.
And Ashton will cough in a jar and send it to you if you want that.
Oh no. Airborne Matthews warfare.
Yeah.
I don't think that's allowed. Maybe. We're not in the EU anymore. Maybe it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah.
Just cough in a jar. And once again, patreon.com/Team TripleJump. A couple of things happening in the next week, aren't there? Isn't there, guys?
Yeah.
Good.
I'll do the one I'm involved in first.
Okay.
And then
okay.
you can do the one
okay.
you're involved
cool,
in.
Cool.
Worst Games Ever Beast Quest is out for everyone by tomorrow at time of release of this podcast, but it was already out for patrons yesterday if you're a patron for patrons. So head to patreon.com if it's Saturday and you're listening to the podcast right now and you're like, oh, I don't want to wait till tomorrow, then head to Patreon. You can see it right now.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Also, this week is, of course, Gamescom. So we are doing live reactions to Gamescom Opening Night Live, which is taking place on Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Yes.
We'll be on YouTube, probably. So come along and watch the show with us. We don't know what's going to be announced yet, but we can't wait to find out.
Tarsia are doing something. Did you see that video of a pig they posted on the internet?
What?
No.
It wasn't live action.
What kind of pig?
On the whole internet.
Yeah,
Did you
on
see
the
the,
internet.
did you see
The
the
video of
pig
the
that got
pig?
uploaded?
The pig video.
No,
yeah.
I didn't.
It was a scary sort of horror pig.
Oh.
You know, like the ones from Bloodborne.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
the-
With all the
Not
eyes.
a
bit like
scary
one of
pig.
those, but
Okay.
with normal amounts of eyes, and it was in the kind of Tarsia Little Nightmares graphic style, but obviously that's not what they're working on. So it's a
Interesting.
new horror game from them, which I assume will be a Gamescom.
Gamescom is
we'll
the
find
place
out.
where you first saw Little Nightmares, I believe. back in
is,
the day,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Where
had a
your
great time.
love was kindled.
Interesting booth set up.
Maybe it'll come full circle on Tuesday night. Opening night live, very, very exciting. We have confirmation that there will be new game announcements there. It will also probably be peppered with the usual bollocks
Yes.
that accompanies a Jeff show. Hopefully slightly fewer than the Game Awards and Summer Game Fest, but we'll probably still see some honky star
It's
around.
never
sorry,
as bad
yeah.
as the Game Awards. The Game Awards is always just a nightmare to watch.
Yeah.
I love it every year, though.
Yeah.
Hopefully, though, because it's attached to an actual show, that being Gamescom, the stuff that they are announcing might be actually quite far along because there is so much press and hands-on stuff happening at Gamescom. It's
Yeah.
really the last one standing in terms of the major shows. I know Tokyo Game Show is still going, but you don't really get many live streams out of that.
No.
That maybe what we see is actually coming out sooner rather than later. You know, instead of here's some concept art from the next BioShock. See you in 7 years.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Fingies crossed. We'll see you on Tuesday on YouTube. We'll all watch it together and have a lovely time. It's time for question 1, I believe.
It's from Janet Wicks, who says, "Hi, Bap. Amy Wicks here." Well, that's
Again, you
confusing.
can't share this. We're going to have to crack down like Netflix. This isn't okay.
Going to charge double. We're not. With access to so many ways to game, do you think the younger generation of gamers will have a fond attachment to their first system? Mine was the SNES, and I may have nerve damage from Street Fighter. Oh, wow. I hope you're well, Amy Wicks. So we talked about this question before we started recording, and we were the angle we assume you're coming at, or the angle we're certainly going to come at, is do we think that people will still feel the same kind of nostalgia for digital gaming as we do for physical? You know, people talk about how, oh yeah, I had that great big monolith in my bedroom when I was a kid. I used to shove cartridges in it or discs or whatever. It would make this noise. It made a smell of hot dust. That's what I remember about the 360.
My cat turned it off.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Less of that now that we're in a digital world. I've got some statistics here
Oh
What?
no, fact.
Not
from
this guy.
GWI Consumer Research.
Well renowned.
Yeah. They say that 37%, I don't think this is any different for any other generation, but 37% of Gen Z or Z are nostalgic for the 90s, despite the majority of them being born in the noughties. I suppose everyone
I can
really...
agree with I can see that, like, outside of games, there's a lot of 90s nostalgia, like a lot of the fashions starting to kind of creep back in, and the music and the TV shows as well. I think there is a lot of, but there's a whole, I could go into an entirely new conversation about the 90s and why Gen Z love it. But yeah, you can see it in other facets of the world.
So I wonder if like there may be a bit of a lag in that, although we are currently in a digital world, I think maybe some of the kids who are growing up with it now might at least have a bit of a false nostalgia for stuff that was before their time and sort of the late end physical kind of gaming sphere. Whereas in maybe another generation's time, people won't necessarily be feeling this like fake nostalgia for the previous generation.
When did Gen Alpha start? What year was that?
Well, yeah, I mean that's
I
sort
think
of
they're
starting.
just starting to be like 10 to 13 now. So.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so I
maybe
think
Gen
2010,
Alpha.
I think maybe was the beginning of
Right.
Gen Alpha potentially.
That's crazy.
Certainly, it
isn't
feels like Gen Beta by that time. You know, even if they're like, "Oh, I wish I'd been born in the previous generation," which also had digital gaming. You know, they won't be able to have even a fake nostalgia for it. But interestingly, also according to this consumer research about Gen Z, in terms of what they are nostalgic for, what kinds of media evokes nostalgia for them, video games came out at the bottom.
I would, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So it was how many people said yes to these things? So 70% said movies, 64% said music, 60% TV shows, 47% looking at photos, and then joint 36% said books and magazines or video games, and video games. So seemingly, Gen Z is less nostalgic for video gaming than they are for other media. I mean, I'd be interested to see how that compares to other generations. Maybe it's always been true that people, on the whole, feel more nostalgic for movies and music than they do for gaming. It's just that
I think gaming's a harder
we're in a
thing
gaming
to
world.
reminisce on, like, or go back to. I think like a lot of gamers who are my generation who maybe haven't grown up with games on the SNES or, you know, the GameCube or whatever, I find it difficult to go back to those games because of the kind of games that we are spoiled with now. I think that, like, for me personally, I look at old games and I can appreciate them from a distance, but I would never sit down and play an SNES game just purely because it's like, well, I don't have the nostalgia for it. I don't really like the way that they look anymore. I don't really like, I know that there's so many more games that are modern that I would rather play.
Yeah,
and
although,
I think that that's maybe not, I'm not saying it for everyone, but I think that there's definitely a thing of like, well, I can play some older games when, like the ones when I was a kid,
yeah,
but the games older than when I was a child, I would struggle to jump into.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's true. I just wonder, and I don't actually have the detail here, but whether this poll is asking about stuff from your own childhood. Like it might be that only 36% feel nostalgic for games that they actually had and played. It doesn't actually make it that clear.
I would assume from the stat ahead, if they were in the same place, that it's stuff from the 90s.
They were written quite far apart in the article, so yeah, I don't know. It's difficult to say, but certainly I think there'll be a difference in the kind of nostalgia you feel. Even those who do feel nostalgic for games from a digital world, it will be a different. You won't have the tactile memories of it and the certain like sensory memories that you would have from having an object in your bedroom. But I'm sure they'll still be feeling the kind of nostalgia for gameplay that anyone else could from any era. Like, oh yeah, remember the fun we had playing Fortnite or, you know, playing Halo 1. You know, it's all the same once you get down into actual gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you guys when you had your first console? Like your first console, how old were you when you started playing it?
I was, it was before we moved house, so I can't have been older than 7 when I had a PS1, but I think it was probably a couple of years. I think we had it for maybe two years before we moved, so probably 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up with a PS1 in our house.
Mine was a Game Boy. And I mean, I think both of us played games before.
Yeah,
that.
Before we owned one.
Yeah. But I just mean like your first console.
I probably would have been about 7, yeah.
Okay. Well, I was thinking, I got a Game Boy when I was like 8 or 9. But I was thinking the other day that I recently hung out with a 2-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
And
was that fun?
It was really fun.
Good conversation.
We played superheroes for like an hour.
On what system?
On the outside.
Using your imagination.
Yeah.
That is gross.
But the aforementioned 2-year-old has an iPad in which he was playing Sonic on it.
Right.
And I was like, right, so this kid, his first experience of gaming is on a mobile device or an iPad. And I think that a lot of these like current actual children, their first gaming console is a phone or an iPad, which I do think is an interesting shift away from what for us was a specific device that was for gaming that then transformed into either a console or later on a console rather than a Game Boy. So I think it's interesting to see like how maybe these kids will be like, well, I used to play Fortnite on my phone, or I used to play Roblox on my mum's phone, or I used to play Minecraft on my phone, and that's their first console. I know that a lot of kids now will have Switches as their first kind of like built console, which I think is a good thing, because I think a Switch is kind of like the perfect introductory console for a child, because there's so many games in it that you can just mess around in. It's portable, but you know, you can get some good games as you grow up with the Switch. So I think like a lot of these kids, especially like these Gen Alpha kids, their first console will be a Switch. I also think it's the most accessible for parents nowadays is the Switch. Obviously, that might shift when the Switch 2 comes out. But I think that there will still be a fond attachment to the first device you played games on, whether that is your Switch or your phone. But I just think that maybe it's a situation of maybe judgment from an older generation that your first console can't be your phone. Like if you were to say to someone, maybe the generation above us, like, oh, so-and-so's first console, they say it's their mobile phone. They'll be like, that's not a console. The younger generation don't know anything. Fortnite kids, haha. And you're like, well, actually, a phone nowadays has so many games on it and kids are so able to play these games on their phone that I do think that maybe we'll just see a shift of what people like deem as a console or their first thing that they played games on. And I think we'll see a lot more dedication to like, my first console was my phone on which I played Fortnite. However, I do think it's interesting. You put a message in the chat yesterday that was like, in 2020, I had Game Pass. Game Pass was my first thing where I played games on, which I think is a really interesting situation of like this digital library and like whether you'll look back at the games and be like, well, I had like this game and this game and this game. You know, I had like a big shelf full of games where now it's like, well, I had Game Pass, so I just played Paw Patrol on Game Pass instead of on a disc, which I do think is an interesting. You can't show your kids Game Pass where you could show me like, look at all these old games I have from my old consoles.
Yeah, so many new gamers now will be just, you know, or not right now, other than Game Pass. Say I've got all my games came from a subscription service. I mean, Game Pass is the only major example of that now, but perhaps in another couple of generations, it will be what everyone is doing. Like, when I was growing up, I just had this library of games that I paid a monthly fee for. Yeah.
I think it's really hard to predict without access to proper data and figures from within people who play games, rather than, you know, what the generation finds nostalgic as such. Yeah. In terms of, let's say, for argument's sake, Gen Zers who play games, younger Gen Zers who are playing games at the moment, it is seemingly, again, total conjecture based on just what we see day to day. It certainly seems that either they do have a console, but it's just to play free-to-play titles like Fortnite or something like that, or, as you guys have said, they have a phone, and that's what they use to play games instead. So it to me seems like it's very much a case of will they be nostalgic for the Xbox One that they played Minecraft on, or that they played Fortnite on, or will they be nostalgic for Minecraft or just Fortnite as a platform, or, as you guys said, Game Pass as a platform? That's what they're nostalgic for. It's not the thing that they're playing it on. It's you know, Fortnite is so much more than we could have ever imagined having access to as kids. So much so that you do see, again, completely anecdotally, without access to hard facts, it certainly does seem that children can and happily will just play Fortnite because it has everything that they could possibly need. So they don't play anything else. Will we be in sort of 20 years' time, will we get these kids who had iPads and that was their first console, for want of a better term? Will there be the same nostalgia in that they go back and are like, oh, I had the iPad 2011 Retina 64 gig version, you know, because with consoles it's very different, because there is a certain element of that. You go back to the PS3, you had either the 60 gigabyte or the 20 gigabyte launch model, and they had various models after that. But ultimately it came down to, I had a PS3. I loved having a PS3. Whereas with iPads, they get a bit thinner, but they're kind of ubiquitous and they come out every year.
But I would say that like someone would just say I had an iPad and I played on my iPad.
They probably would. But I do wonder if there will be a certain sect who are like, I want to buy the specific iPad that I had when I was a kid. And it had stickers on it, and that was mine. And I also wonder if, as you guys point out, in terms of just sort of having access to digital libraries and Game Pass or just live service games like Fortnite, I wonder if there were, or there even so far have been, any Gen Z kids who were born maybe near the start of Gen Z who did grow up on Fortnite, who have since, again, for want of a better term, graduated onto proper games, or if they did just see it as perhaps a bit more disposable because it was free to play. There wasn't a monetary investment in buying a system, in buying games, in having that potentially a physical library or even a digital library. If all you needed was Fortnite, and then you grew up and you didn't then make the swap to playing narrative games or trying other games with your friends and stuff, are you even still playing games? Is that attachment still there because you didn't have to maybe put as much effort, isn't the right word, but you didn't have to put as much into getting stuff out of games like money and time?
Well,
and
it's the same as, or it's similar to the fact that in earlier console generations, particularly if you were a child with pocket money, you would probably have a handful of games at most that you played over and over again because that's all you could afford. And so there's probably an element there of like the exposure that you had to that handful of games is one of the things that really like roots those into your nostalgia when you look back and like, oh yeah, I put hours into Spyro or whatever. Whereas nowadays, all right, you've got your Fortnites and your Minecrafts where maybe kids are putting hours and hours, days worth in total into those games. But if perhaps they're not into Fortnite or Minecraft and what they do just have is Game Pass and they're flitting between free games, play this for a couple of hours, I'm not interested in that, but I've not invested any money, so I'll just move on to something else. If their gaming experience is just sort of little snatched like hours and, you know, maybe a single playthrough of this thing and that thing and then move on to something else, is that a difference there where, you know, because you've not had to sit down and just play the same 3 games over and over again because you couldn't afford to buy a new disc, maybe that's going to affect how some of these games like enter into your memories and your kind of into your nostalgia.
I think the industry is probably going to face a pretty seismic shift over the next 20 years or so as these people who are playing now gain maturity and look to, or they just have a completely different rationale and approach to playing games than we do because that's what they've been served and that's what they're used to. I think the industry to a certain extent will always have something for people like us and the kind of games that we want to play, perhaps the people watching or listening to this podcast as well. But certainly these kids who are playing Fortnite on their iPad and that's all they want are going to grow up, and unless Fortnite is still going, that's a sizable, market share that the industry is going to want to cater for, and that's only going to continue with younger generations as well. So I'm interested to see where it goes, but as of right now, without access to facts, as I said, I genuinely don't know what these gamers are going to be interested in or what the nostalgia is going to look like for sure.
Yeah.
Well, now it's time for a brand new segment that I thought we could all try together to be hip and cool and down with the kids. It's called Skibbity What We Playin.
Whoa! It's What We Playin time. Time to talk about the games what we've been playing. Peter Austin, what have you been playing, please?
Hey, talking of nostalgia, I've not gone back yet to Star Wars Bounty Hunter because since playing it for my stream...
did you find all the bounties, I suppose, is the question?
Oh, yeah,
Did you pick all the chocolates out?
Hunted them all.
Hunted all of those bounties. Delicious coconut. Since playing for my stream, Tomba Special Edition, I've not been able to put it down. So normally I wouldn't talk about a game that I'm streaming. I'd talk about something else that I've been playing. But it's all I've been playing. I've had a really nice time with it. And I think I talked last week about how I think it's tapping into a little bit of like, I'm still feeling a bit down in the dumps being ill. And it just kind of takes me back to duvet day, child off school, playing games when I was little. And so maybe that is partly why I'm enjoying it so much. But yeah, I'm having a really good time. And I'm basically just going to end up playing the entire game twice in the space of a few weeks because I'm, at the moment, seemingly people want me to carry on streaming it. I did a poll at the end of the last stream and they were like, yes, play more. If I have to play the whole thing, that'll be 2 back-to-back playthroughs. Oh, what a shame.
Damn it.
But that's all I can offer to this Skibbity section because that's all I've played. So yeah, the game what I streamed is what I have played.
Cool. I played a few things. I too have been sick this week and have been just wanting something that was head empty. So I played some more Fallout 76, still plodding around Appalachia, seeing what's going on.
You moved your houses
Looking
closer
for
I
together.
haven't moved my house yet because I was like gonna do it, and Ben's like, "Oh, are we gonna do it now while we're playing together?" I was like, "Well, when else am I gonna do it? We only ever play this
You'll
game
have to get
together."
up super early to
I mean,
move
exactly.
house.
I'm gonna have to like find time when he's not playing the game to like move my house somewhere else. But the issue I have is that where he's moved his house to is where everyone always puts their houses. So the amount of times he's logged into a server and it said, "Sorry, you can't have your house because somebody else's house is already there." I'm like, I'm gonna move my house there and I'm never gonna be able to get into it. So anyway, it's a whole big thing, and I'm annoyed that he moved his house to begin with.
Can you just plonk it, or do you have to rebuild it
I have
piece
to.
by piece?
Well, you can apparently save a blueprint, but I'm probably going to have to
I don't
rebuild
trust
it.
Bethesda for that.
No,
to work
exactly. I'm
at
probably
all.
going to have to rebuild it piece by
Right.
piece, which is really sad. I have been playing some more Suicide Squad. I am at the point now where I'm going to
Yes.
go get Green Lantern, but
You can stop.
I don't want. I kind of.
don't have
I
to-
keep just
you don't
booting
have
it
to
up
play
and
it.
playing it for like half an hour and then like closing it again. I think it's just like. I think I'm always like, maybe this time it will be different,
Yeah.
and then it's not. I'm like, this mission sounds fun. We get to go and break into the Wayne Bank. No, I don't. Don't be silly, Ashton. You kill a bunch of baddies outside, and then you get to look at a cutscene on the inside. And I'm like, it's happened again. I keep thinking that this time will be different, but it's not. It's the same thing.
You know, Bruce Wayne had his own bank. That's
Yeah.
kind of crazy.
Yeah.
He
Well.
was kind of the villain, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Well,
he
those
kind
Waynes.
of is. Yeah.
They're not great.
Yeah. I've played some more Cult of the Lamb. This week they added the patch where you can play with someone else in co-op, couch co-op, and that's been fun. I was dragging my boyfriend through a few of the like enemy runs, and he was like, "I do not know how to play this game," and I'm like, "Come on, figure it out. I've unlocked so much stuff. It's so confusing now. Like, press this button to do this," and he's like, what is happening?"
What's your cult called again?
My cult is called The Gay Agenda.
Oh, yes.
And I have 3 wives,
Well done.
That's pretty gay.
but they keep dying of old age.
Oh,
old
no.
8. Why are
Yeah,
you dying of old
Because
age?
because I am the chosen one.
Okay.
And I keep giving them like necklaces that make them live longer, and then they still die. It's
God.
actually like
That's
trauma.
the curse of being
Yeah.
an immortal.
Exactly. I'm like, I've got an old wife, must marry a new wife to
What? What's the purpose of marriage?
Replace the just they like to have a wedding.
She just
Oh,
wants-
okay,
she
they
just
enjoy
likes
it. It's
wine.
good
They
for
enjoy
morale.
the wedding. It's good for morale. And
Okay.
one of them gets to be your happy spouse, and if they're happy enough, then they'll work harder, which is good. But the
Cool.
more wives you have, they start to get jealous of each other, and they might try and kill each other,
Oh,
which is
God.
fun. And I've
That
also
sounds
unlocked the sins of the flesh, like part of the game now, where they can like mate,
Okay.
and you can
Flip.
you can have like naked time around a fire if you
Oh,
want to, and
oh.
then just stay naked for like a whole day.
Fun.
Cool.
But
yeah.
they're animals, right?
But they're animals.
So are they dressed anyway?
But
Or?
they have a little. Yeah, they wear clothes.
Oh, okay.
They wear your cult outfits.
Right, okay.
And then when they're naked, they have a little flower over their crotches.
Oh, lovely.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
good. Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, so I played that. And then I also have played something with you this week.
Yeah.
We played Knowledge is Power on
Oh, lovely.
Playlink. We hung out on Saturday. I'm really sad, actually.
What?
Well, we're both quite sad because you can't play most of the Playlink games anymore
Yeah.
at all.
This was, I made a note of them as well. This was a devastating discovery. So Mikey Johnson, our good friend, came up to visit last week. And then we all went out for some drinks afterwards. And everybody peeled off to go home. But we were like, the party's not done yet.
Whoa.
Let's get sick as a dog Ashton Matthews on the wine and play some video games.
I was very unwell on Sunday. I had to spend the whole day horizontal.
Oh, no.
So we attempted to play Uno. The app is gone.
The app is gone.
You,
You can't
can't
buy
play.
the app anymore.
The app is
Oh.
not available on your phone. You can't do that anymore.
No.
We could do Knowledge is Power, but as discussed previously through the PS5, you have to like broadcast a fake Wi-Fi signal for people
Yeah.
to connect to. That was
Yeah.
their solution for making it work. Probably still works fine on PS4, I would imagine.
There was a very good question though.
Oh yeah, I've
It
made
was
a
a-
note of it. I've got that.
It was
somewhere.
a question about like who discovered pasteurization of milk,
Right.
and then
I can give you the answers. They are all timers.
so good.
So, Peter, who figured out a way to make milk and wine less likely to kill you? A. Louis Pasteur.
Right.
B. Jeremy Bottle. C. Philip Cream.
Right.
Or D. Milky Jim.
Right.
It's so good, man. I've got cult members in Cult of the Lamb called Milky Jim.
Milky
and Philip
Jim is
Cream.
an-
I
is an
actually married
excellent-
Philip Cream.
Did you?
Philip
in my
Cream.
cult,
That's
yeah.
great. Yeah.
But yeah, it was so good. We were like cry laughing, and then we were called Philip Cream in the next round because it's just
God.
It was good.
so good, man.
That's You. Done.
Done.
Cannot
Gone.
play That's You
Oh,
anymore.
not That's You.
The app is still available, but when you boot it up, there's
Doesn't
just a
work.
connection error. So these games are just
They're gone.
they're like the licenses I assume are expiring. It's really sad because we're such champions of Playlink, and we
Yeah.
have ever since they first started doing them in 2017.
when they kill knowledge as power, it's going to be a really
They were
sad.
It
so
is.
convenient. Such a good way to just play games with a bunch of people.
I know.
Yeah, and they're great games as well. We
Yeah.
had so much fun. I've got my siblings coming up to visit, and we always end up playing Hidden Agenda. And I'm going to angry cry if Hidden
I think
Agenda
Hidden
doesn't
Agenda
work.
was still on. It was like one of the
God.
two that was still alive.
Okay, hopefully that still works. Because what's a bloody waste? Talking about game preservation as we often do.
Yeah.
How hard is it just to keep an app on a store?
Yeah.
Especially if people have played for it because it renders it unplayable.
Yeah.
So are you entitled to a refund? I'd argue not because I've played dozens and dozens of hours of it. But I'm still cross. I should still be able to play it with like a controller or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, just set up your own. Even if you have to set up a little server, do some
Got it.
clever nerdy stuff to make it work. Like at least just allow the software to continue to work as long as it's got a connection.
Yeah, it was really sad.
Yeah. We did play some Jackbox as well, though. That
We
was
did
another
play
one
some
that we
Trivia
played.
Murder Party.
Outside of that I played of those games, I tried some Unravel 2. I didn't really like it.
That's the one where you can play in co-op.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's where you're Yarny or whatever it's
Yeah.
called. Yeah. I like the idea of it, but I couldn't be asked. It was a lot of platforming that requires you to dangle one another from string and like swing across and lasso onto things. And I found that sometimes the lasso didn't work properly. And I played it for about an hour and then decided that's not really for me. I've had that. I bought that like 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
I've got them both and I've not yet played them. I've been meaning to.
I love the idea of it, but that didn't cut the mustard for me. Played a bit more Final Fantasy VIII. I played some more Strangers of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin.
Oh.
That game, I forgot because it was like a week since I last played it, is unbelievably oversaturated, like the color scheme. It was honestly hard to look at. In like outside colorful environments, it was like just blinding green and yellow, and I had it on the default settings. I ended up going in and like dropping the saturation to its lowest level. I don't know if it's something weird going on with the HDR, but the person I was playing it with agreed that like actually it's horrible to look at.
Right.
And then they're just doing quips every time you have a fight, which is maybe every 30 seconds because you're essentially going down a corridor that's outside. They always have a quip, and it's always something like, on to the next one. Well, that's that then.
Would hate that. Would hate to play a game where the characters are always
No,
talking.
doesn't sound like Suicide Squad. at
Suicide
all.
Squad, they literally never speak ever. They're so quiet. You forget
wouldn't even know
they're
they're there.
Silent.
Yeah.
Or like Silent Squad.
Good one.
All right. Yeah.
It also throws gear at you every 2 seconds. The story is nonsensical. It's just, I'm absolutely astounded that this game was ever made. I'm sure some people got some joy out of it, but I have so many questions that are not answered by the story. The characters are so one-dimensional. They wear 21st century, like I don't understand. They're fighting demons and like, Final Fantasy staple enemies that show up in all of them, like the bomb thing that looks like a fire guy and stuff. And then they're just like, one of them's wearing a tank top and like he's got a flannel shirt tied around his waist and jeans. I'm like, what's happening? Who designed this? Absolutely astounding. Only stomached about 40 minutes of it, and I will play more. So
Right. That was going to be my next question.
you have been warned.
Me with Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every so often I'll hop in to catch up with my friend. Like, do you want to play one of the worst games that we both hate? Sure, let's do it.
Yeah.
Finally, I've played some WWE 2K24. Thank you to everyone who stepped up and created some wonderful custom characters for my stream. We're up to about 28 wrestlers now.
Saw them on your
Wow.
board.
We've got Miller. We've got the three of us that were created a while ago.
Tony Baboni.
Tony
Tony
Baboni's in there. We've got
Ivy's there.
Ivy's in there. Mona Wanks is in there. Robot Lady.
The mods.
Mona
The mods are in
Wanks.
there.
Get in.
I saw you scrolling down the list at one point. Did someone just make Samus for some reason?
No, that was one I forgot to delete.
Oh,
I
right.
downloaded them for a list recently when we were,
Okay.
and I got rid of them all, but for some reason didn't get rid of that one. But I made a couple more last night.
Hit TJ character Samus.
Samus, yeah. Pippa the Cat's now been made. We've got Palmusek is in there.
Someone made Wadders and Grombot, which
Wadders and Grombot are in there,
They're
yeah.
both in there.
They're ready to go.
She makes Sparks and Ember so they can have a cat off.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, here's the
Who's
fun
the
thing.
ultimate cat?
The way that this mode works, which I'm a complete newbie at, and I have had to ask a lot of questions to people who know how it works. It sort of randomly generates. I'm trying to get them all sort of the same level of ability, so no one's got an advantage. And then it's kind of RNG for who wins anyway. But then there's all sorts of bonus factors that it throws in, like these two are in a rivalry now, and because this person won, the other person is jealous, and there's a cutscene that plays before the next fight where they attack them on their way to the ring.
Whoa.
The winner gets more momentum, and then so I'm trying to work it out as I go, but it could, once we've got a full roster, it could be quite entertaining to see what actually happens and unfolds. So, yeah, good fun. It was nice to just sort of sit there and design some monstrosities with, again, sort of brain off kind of stuff with TV on. So, yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Well, now it's time to find out what Ben, James, and I thought of the Borderlands movie
Oh, boy.
in the review corner.
Welcome to the review corner, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
James is here.
Hello.
Peter's gone.
Yeah.
Boo! Peter Austin,
What a
boo!
loser.
Today we're here, of course, to talk about the Borderlands movie, which we all saw last night at the time of recording.
Oh, thrilling.
It's had something of a critical mauling, would be a fair description.
Yeah,
I would
it's not
say
been
so,
pretty.
yes.
And according to rough box office figures, we might have been the only people in the entire world who went to go and see it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It felt like it last
I
night.
mean, there was us five
Yeah.
and about 3 other people in the cinema.
Yes, there was a man who left for a long period,
Yeah.
came back, and then left before the end because he had had enough.
Yeah.
He didn't want to
So
watch
at least
any more
one
of it.
person left
Yeah.
early, so
Yeah,
fun. That was
So-
a wise decision.
we need to talk about this film.
Yes.
People want to hear what we have to say about this film
Yeah.
because we loved the Uncharted movie, which
Ironically.
was a terrible video game movie, but had enough wrong with it that was entertaining for us to
Yeah.
enjoy it a lot.
Yeah.
How are you guys coming out of the Borderlands movie feeling the same way?
No, this movie was
Absolutely not.
was objectively bad.
Right.
Like in more ways than just technically was bad. I mean, there was a lot of terrible ADRs.
Yeah.
There was a lot of moments where Kate Blanchett's mouth clearly wasn't moving, but she was talking. There was one specific instance where she was mid-word,
Yeah.
turning around. The audio is saying that she's saying coordinates. Her mouth is not saying coordinates.
No.
And yeah, obviously this movie has been through the ringer from
Yeah.
its inception to now. Like, it's had 3 directors. It had multiple writers take their names off of it. It has been a mess. So it's not surprising, and none of us are surprised.
No,
we
no,
all
no,
knew
no.
it was going to be bad.
Yeah. It was a
but
terrible evening.
It's different.
I had a horrible evening.
Yeah, it's different, like hearing about the car crash and then being involved in it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Witnessing
yeah.
it firsthand.
I feel like there was so many levels wrong to it. So you're saying about the production values, pretty bad. I mean, I will say maybe the one vaguely kind of positive thing is they put an effort into set design. That was clear. And yet, even that wasn't quite right. Maybe we'll touch
Well,
on that
there
later.
might-
It's
yeah,
like
I have an
almost the
issue with the
uncanny
set design.
valley
Yeah.
that they got so close and it wasn't quite there. So, if anything,
Yeah.
it made it worse. Writing just terrible. It's just the most bland, generic action movie. And it's if you were writing a parody, you couldn't have done any more accurate than that. It's like.
It was dreadful. Like on most levels, it was dreadful. That it had no personality, it had no charm,
It had no heart.
It had no
Exactly.
heart. Every single character moment felt completely unearned. They
Yeah.
were
No
unlikable.
characters.
If you like Borderlands,
Really?
I mean, speaking specifically from the perspective of a Borderlands fan, if you are a fan of the games, there is nothing in this movie for you. There's it's Borderlands in, I think we were talking last night, in nouns alone.
Yeah.
Like they've got the nouns in there, they've got some place names, they've got some character names.
Yeah.
That's about it. There's some nods, tiny nods to things. Like I think I saw a wanted poster for one of the Zaphod family members who's in a quest in Borderlands 2. But that's kind of it. Like I was keeping my eyes peeled for Easter eggs, like maybe Handsome Jack like will appear in some.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. We will probably dive into some sort of spoiler territory here. So if you do want to see it, then maybe skip ahead to this amount of time from now, about 18 minutes.
I mean, so basically the premise of the movie, if you manage to avoid it, is that Atlas, he is in the movie for like 5 minutes, and he is looking to open the vault on Pandora. His daughter, Tiny Tina,
Right.
is the daughter of Iridia, and she is the only one who can open the vault. But she has been kidnapped / rescued by Kevin Hart's Roland. And so he gets Lilith to go back to Pandora, because she's on Promethea, which was one of the more interesting things, that we got to see another planet that we've seen before in Borderlands 3. To go back to Pandora to find Tina, to take her back to Atlas. She just thinks that his daughter's been kidnapped, so she goes. And then chaos ensues, and they open the vault at the end, like in the movies. However, it's not like the games at all, and it's an entirely new story that we've not seen before. We've got some characters that are kind of there, sort of. Like Nox is there, who is a baddie in Borderlands 1, I think in a DLC, and they've gender swapped him so that it's now a woman, which I don't understand, because they could have just called her Commander Steel.
Yeah, who was a real
who was
character.
a woman in Borderlands 1 and who worked for Atlas. I don't know why they called her Nox, but yeah. And they go to places like Caustic Caverns, which is a corridor that's green.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
They go to the Tundra Express, where there is no snow. And then they finally get the vault at the end.
So you said the names are there, but it doesn't feel anything like, accurate to the to the games rather.
Yeah.
And I joked about it. Like, there wasn't even a Minecraft Easter egg. There wasn't even a creeper in Caustic Caverns. But like,
Caustic Caverns was
that's
a
beyond.
corridor
Yeah,
that looked like
it's not
something
a
out of
cavern.
Jungle Run
Yeah.
that they just had to edge down the
Yes.
side of. It was it was really, really hurt by being a 12A as well. That doesn't make any sense. There was lots of fighting and combat in there.
So
None
boring.
of it felt interesting. There was one bit in particular. I was sat next to James, and I think I just went, oh, for flip's sake.
Yeah.
Where Roland is doing sort of like a last stand moment, and there's loads of bandits pressing up against like a gate, and he's just like, they're all firing at it, and it keeps cutting back to none of the bandits being hit, even though they're behind the gate. And it's just like, from an editing standpoint, it was awful. Like really bad. And you're right about the dubbing as well. There's some really obvious dubbing that just doesn't make any sense. Krieg obviously is wearing a mask, but when his lines are dubbed in, it's not even like he's emoting. If you want to compare it to
it's the
Twisted
most obvious
Metal
voiceover
with Samoa Joe, and he's wearing his mask, like you can tell like he's expressing himself and his eyes are moving, whereas Krieg is just sort of stood there with no movement in any of his body part, and then his line plays over the top, and it's like, this is it's just looks cheap.
Yeah, all of the action stuff just seemed very, like, I've never been more bored seeing like that much, action. It's meant to be exciting, right? It's meant to be the exciting parts. You've got the most dull, uninspired sort of scenes there in terms of,
It wasn't filmed, the fights weren't filmed.
exactly, yeah, choreography wise, filming wise, and even the fact that if it was something capturing more of the Borderlands feel, you'd think there'd be more uniqueness to maybe the weapons. They'd come up with some more ingenious set pieces and stuff. I mean, John Wick manages to do stuff with just regular guns. Like, you've got a sci-fi setting with one of the main
Iconic
points,
guns,
are the iconic guns that, no guns walking around or talking or doing any sort of crazy effects.
Or exploding when they're reloading or anything. Everyone's just shooting guns.
And it's just guns, a few explosions, whatever.
And the thing is, those bits of the film were mid at best. The final act of this film is objectively bad. Like, they find a vault. The vault's not in anywhere special. It's just in a canyon.
You didn't even talk about how she found the key first.
Oh, yeah. She walks around onto the shelf.
Like, how are we going to find it? There's a room full of boxes.
Yeah, and then
That was so annoying.
I kept feeling like, they're going to
God.
add like a sound effect in or something for Lilith to find it. But no, she just opens the box.
She
and
opens the
finds
first box she opens, she's like, oh. And it's like,
here it is.
Seriously?
And they're like, how did you find that? She's like, I don't know. And then they're like, okay, cool, moving on. And then
Oh dear.
we get to the final stunt. We get to the end of the movie where, we're going to open the vault. Tina's like going to open it because she's the special one, which is kind of her whole story arc in the movie, is that like she's the special one. They barely embrace any of Tina's, like they give her bombs and she throws them sometimes, but she very rarely like actually gets to be Tina. And Ariana Greenblatt's really good, and like there was a couple times where like you could see that like Tina could be a really interesting character in it, and like she had a few lines that I thought were delivered really well, but for the most part she's just not given anything to work with, really. And then the end comes along. We're in a canyon. Atlas are there. They have a spaceship. They have a bunch of psychos on their side. They have one of those big boys with a big hammer.
yeah, he was like a boss
So,
from one of the games. I don't know why.
They try and open the vault. Lilith's there, saves the day. Should I tell you what happens? Should we do spoilers now?
Yeah.
So the whole movie, she's not got siren powers.
No tattoos, nothing.
No tattoos, nothing. They keep saying that Tiny Tina's the daughter of Iridia, and then she opens the vault, and they kept being like, when you open the vault, the daughter of Iridia will be consumed like the keys, and she'll die. Obviously, she doesn't die. She becomes the Firehawk, and then we get the best moment of all of every movie whenever it happens is when they show you a flashback sequence of the movie you've just watched.
Yeah. They're like,
for goodness sake.
where did this twist come from? The twist was so obvious the entire movie because they laid it on
Exactly.
so thick that Tina was not going to be the chosen one.
At one point, she like phase walks, like so they all phase walk out of a sticky situation, and it's like, wow, Tina did that. And having
well done,
played
Tina.
the game, we were all like, well, I know Tina didn't do that.
No.
It's literally, like if you've played the game, the big twist is what you figure out on the character select screen of, she's a siren. Okay, that's
She
a
can
siren
do that
character.
stuff.
Even if you haven't played the game, like you said, it's blindingly obvious.
It was an
where it's
incredibly
gonna go.
obvious twist, but they still chose to treat the audience like they were four by showing a flashback to scenes that had literally happened like 5 minutes
Not even
earlier,
that, yeah.
and it's like we were here, my dude.
Yeah.
Like we're watching the same movie that you
Yeah.
are showing us. We know what's happening.
Yeah, and then Lilith turns into a bird.
Yeah, a really bad CG
She
bird.
gets
It's pretty
she
rough,
gets
innit?
like Captain Marvel powers.
Yeah.
Fights his spaceship.
Yeah, she
and
does
it's-
fight a spaceship.
and it's-
She
bird.
literally charges it, yeah.
Yeah. And they like, they save the day, and then they go into the vault, and in the vault is a bunch of floating boxes.
Yeah, cute.
Real treasure.
And he's like, "Wow, look, all the treasures of the
Yeah.
ancient."
Yeah.
It's just
It's like
cute.
They
just
can't
cute.
even visually communicate that. I think they have to like clunkily add in a line. It's like, all the ancient historical treasures of,
Yeah.
and then it sort of glows a little bit. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Yeah, it doesn't look great.
The Lilith saves the day, and Atlas gets got by a big squid.
Yeah, and that's it.
And that's it. And then
We're not joking.
everyone on Pandora is fine.
And they're
Is normal.
celebrating
And they're
something.
celebrating peace.
Maybe Atlas are going. Perhaps it's not
Yeah.
really
Yeah, everyone's
explained.
fine with it. The whole point of Pandora, like anyone's there, is because they're looking for the vault.
Yeah.
And they found the vault now. They've opened it, and everyone's fine.
It's
Even though they didn't really
utterly
take anything.
baffling. Like the lines, there are several
Falls
lines
apart.
in it that are dreadful. Like
Delivered badly.
the bits where there's fireworks going off at the end. Lilith goes, "Do you hear that? Sounds like peace."
Yeah.
It's like, ugh,
Why?
awful.
It was-
I'm too
yeah.
old for this flip. Like all of it.
Oh, there was legit one of those. I'm too old for this flip.
It was
yeah.
right near the start as well.
Yeah.
and also Jamie Lee
Is
Curtis.
that an army? You and what army?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
this
This
one. Lol.
Jamie Lee
up.
Curtis's Tannis was bad.
Yeah.
As well.
It's like it's borderline
At one
offensive.
point, yeah.
That
At one
was.
point, she says,
I
she
mean-
says, "I'm sensing that you're sad because of your body language."
Yeah.
And it's like, cool. Tannis would say that, but she wouldn't say it how you said it, Jamie Lee.
Yeah.
And then later on,
It's just-
when my absolute favourite moment that I still keep quoting, like 24 hours later, is that when Lilith becomes the Firehawk, they cut to Jamie Lee Curtis Tannis. She goes, "I think I figured it out. She's a daughter of Illyria." yeah, no flip, Tannis.
Yeah.
We've all been there for 15 minutes. Catch up, Jamie Lee. Jesus Christ.
Really bad. And she's meant to be, you know, the genius character. And this is what I mean by it's like, it is borderline offensive to like, you know, neurodivergent people. And it's like, yes, they're like this, they're this annoying and laugh at them. And it's like, no, that's not that. I don't know if that's the message that they're trying to portray because that's really bad.
It's
That's
weird.
funny.
Jesus, it's just
A lot's been said about
awful.
the casting, and it is baffling in a lot of ways. But the story also doesn't really make it feels like Lilith's character was written for someone that was in their 30s, given because it ties into her mum, which is nothing that's ever touched upon in the games ever. Like
Yeah.
her mum was a scientist or something and left her in the care of Tannis when they were younger. But Lilith at this point looks like, was she in her 50s or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, this feels like it should have been, it's like a Chris Pratt Guardians of the Galaxy style, you know, you picked me up from Earth when I was a kid kind of thing, and he's now in his early 30s or whatever. It
Yeah.
feels weird that this is happening so much later in her life. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Really, really bizarre.
It is really weird. And like,
a lot of things.
yeah, so they embrace like the siren thing. Well, the word siren is said one time in the whole movie. But they're like, oh, the Firehawk was a goddess of Illyria who looked after Pandora. She's like the goddess of Pandora, and like she's gonna have another. Someone really, really special will take on the role of the Firehawk. So they give it like a bit more lore into what the Firehawks are. And I've always said that the most interesting part of Borderlands lore are the sirens and that whole side of things. And we didn't get much about that in Borderlands 3, even though 2 in the pre-sequel set it out loads. So I was like, okay, interesting that we get a little bit about the sirens. But yeah, it's just weird. Just like weird casting choices. And also, it wasn't funny.
No, not at all.
Like, there was sometimes where I was like, oh, we're telling a joke now. We're having a funny
So
moment.
bad. I think that's another thing that suffered. I think it's suffered across the board from clearly being watered down in so many different ways and toned down. You don't have the gratuitous violence that's like very, at least it would have added a bit more character to the whole proceedings. And with the jokes, it feels like, yeah, I mean, Borderlands humor, you know, is very silly and can be very crude, whatever. But, you know, at least they have some jokes that land for a lot of people. In this, it feels like they've tried to downplay it so much that it becomes like it's just childish and like really bad. So Claptrap, we haven't really talked about him yet.
No, he's meant to be
Should
the
we-
comic relief, but he is
Yeah.
the furthest thing from that.
And I know he's meant to be annoying, but they made it even worse somehow.
And also, they completely, like,
Wow.
because he was just a CG thing that was added after, they didn't really react appropriately to anything he was doing. So at the end, the bit that sticks out in my mind, once they're all up on the rooftop in Sanctuary and they're celebrating, it sounds like peace, and all the fireworks going on. Claptrap just says some absolute bollocks that doesn't make any sense. And all of them, as if on cue, as if literally on cue, go, ha 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 ha. And then they deliver the next line.
Yeah.
It's like, you need to laugh. Claptrap says something funny here. You now need to laugh. None of it feels organic.
Yeah.
It's shocking. It's so divorced from Borderlands. I can't believe there wasn't a single wanted poster with like just a teaser of another Vault Hunter or something. The only silver
Not
lining for
many
me
references.
is that Marcus was spot on. The
The
guy
really
who played
was
Marcus
yeah.
was correct, and that was played properly. I like that.
The fact I was going to say, that's like one of the few things that they maybe tried to not only provide a nod to the games, but also did quite well. Yeah, the little bus scene at the start, that was nice. But
Yeah.
unfortunately,
They should have had him
much
do
like
the
everything
intro.
else.
Yes, they should.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
So you
instead
want
of
to
her,
hear a story?
Yeah, instead of her, it's Lilith doing a whole monologue that once again goes on too long. Like I was
Wonder-
going to say
wonder
about
how
the
I
bus
got
scene as
here.
well.
And then right
Yeah,
at
and
the end,
it's
the final
just-
line is like
man.
completely a separate take of like a different script. Like she gets all the way through. She's like, the daughters of Illyria, and then there's this. Want to know how I got here? It was like, whoa, what happened?
Also, they made it look like there was one moment in one of the trailers where Claptrap goes, "But don't worry, my sense of direction is flawless," and he goes around the corner and gets shot to pieces. I was looking out for that moment in the movie
didn't.
because ahead of time, some reviews said, "Oh, Claptrap's all right. Jack Black's Claptrap is okay." That is two different scenes spliced together. So even the person editing the trailer was like, this does not land. I'm going to edit this so it's funny.
We're gonna have to fix it in post.
Got to fix it in the
They always say
trailer.
like, oh, all the funny bits are in the trailer, but the fact that the only
There's no
funny bit in
funny
the
bit
trailer
in the
isn't even in the movie is
No,
like
it's
really
not
good.
cut together.
Yeah,
It's
really awesome.
it's as you said, uncanny valley at times. It looks a bit, especially the Crimson Lance or the Atlas soldiers, the ones who wear the red helmets, looks like cosplay a lot of the time in this movie. Really strange.
It looks so cheap and so expensive at the same time.
Yeah,
is it.
that's what that
It's
review
an-
said, and that's spot on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, that is.
It's
I
an incredible
totally agree.
achievement to spend that much money and still look so like half-assed. It's amazing.
Honestly,
But, yeah.
so impressive. They made a movie. They tried to make a movie for everyone, and
Yeah.
they've made a movie for no one. And it's so divorced from Borderlands that even people who like the films don't want to come and see it, and it's just us who are morbidly curious, or
Yeah.
they have Cinema Unlimited cards and they're just going to go see it anyway. It is a nothing movie that you can't even laugh at. It's the worst kind of bad movie. No redeeming qualities whatsoever. You guys have anything else you want to say? Randy wasn't in it. We were expecting
Yeah, I was-
Randy to make a cameo, and he did not.
Furious
Randy
about that.
Pitchford was not in it.
I'm actually more fuming about that than anything else because at least we could have laughed at something then.
Yeah.
If he was in there, but like, no.
No Randy.
Shame.
Yeah, I also think it's really funny that there was someone was talking about there was a gif of the trailer where they opened the hatch. And my boyfriend was
Yes.
like, oh,
Yeah.
you can see someone's arm, like open it from the other side where no one is standing. And I was like, maybe it's just for like in the picture. And he was like, well, let's see. And then they cut to that shot like where we're looking up the pipe, and Krieg like opens it halfway, and then someone else who is not a character in the movie grabs it and pulls it open further so that they can see it. And you can just see there's a man just standing there. Who is that? And I'm like,
Randy.
that's Randy.
That's
Maybe
Randy's
That's
cameo.
Randy's
Yeah,
cameo. He's the guy that finished opening the hatch for Krieg.
Crying out
It was a
loud.
bad movie.
It was really bad.
It was a bad, not even in a way that like I like bad movies, and it wasn't even bad in a fun way. It was just like, what have they done? How have they done this? And why have they done it?
Why did they do this to us? We are currently working on a deep dive video about this movie that hopefully will be on the channel soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But if you did go and see it, why don't you commiserate and form support groups in the comments below?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Any closing words, James?
I mean, just to echo what you said before, it's not really made for anybody because fans are appalled by it. You know, gamers that don't play Borderlands are not going to want to play Borderlands after seeing this because it doesn't evoke any of the heart or anything from that series. And
terrible
regular moviegoers are just going to think it's just crap. Like it's
Just a crap action movie. Yeah.
terrible. So-
Really awful.
I think I figured it out. It's a bad movie.
Terrible.
What?
Horrible. Well, let's
Tell
go
you how
back
we got here.
to the podcast now.
It's time now for question 2. If you're watching the video podcast, you might notice that looked different because the camera broke, but it's fine. You can
was in
still see
focus
us,
and-
and that's what's important.
And it ran okay, but
Yeah.
it was just the TV was slightly cropped off. We couldn't have predicted that. We were working up against technology that wasn't
We
ready.
truly
so-
were. This question comes from Chris McVeigh. Hi, BAP. Player counts, a useful metric for tracking engagement over time, or an even more tedious version of the console war? I don't think there's any specific news right now, but Twitter has just hit me with a 1-2 punch of Helldivers 2 is dead because only 40,000 people are playing it, and Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy has gone up 2,800% since going on Game Pass. Like either of those are helpful or useful information, and it has annoyed me. So I'd be curious to hear what you think about this sort of thing. I saw this Helldivers news, literally like just came up on Twitter being like, I can't believe Helldivers is dead. Have you seen it? And I was like, what are we talking about? And it was like a classic example of the developers not knowing what gamers want and not playing the game with their players. And I was like, I mean, no one's talking about Helldivers as much as they were a few months ago. But like, I didn't think it was dead. But I mean, 40,000 people is still quite a lot of people.
It's
But
definitely-
a significantly less people than obviously were originally playing it.
Yeah, I've got some stats about that I'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, I think that's a bit of an exaggeration.
Yeah, I was
isn't
so
it?
confused. I was
Well,
like, have I
also-
missed something here?
And in the case of the Crash Bandicoot one, the fact that it's by percentage rather than like, yeah, it might be up 2,800%.
From one player.
Yeah, that's probably because there was one player and now 3,000 people are playing it. You know, it'll be more than that. But, you know, it's all relative if you're doing it by percentage. Yeah, it's gone on Game Pass. People are now playing it. Maybe a few people who've only ever who've never ever had access to it and are giving it a go. It's not, as Chris McVeigh laments, these aren't necessarily indicative of success on a grand scale, or they shouldn't necessarily be used to make decisions. On the part of publishers. They shouldn't necessarily be looking at these stats alone and say, well, now we need to make the Insane Trilogy 2, or, Helldivers is dead, we'll never ever do anything else. It's in a lot of ways, or certainly on its own, it's not a useful stat, I would say, but alongside other things and, taking into account various factors, a bit more useful, I suppose.
I always find people always point out player counts or online people on Steam whenever it's used to dunk on something. It happened with Forspoken. Obviously, that was not a very good game, but people were like, oh my god, look, it's only got 3,000 players, that's crazy. And it's it's crazy that information is so easy to people just to find and just be like, look at this. But also I do think that player numbers and player counts and this kind of thing are always just used to dunk on a game, when realistically Helldivers came out 6 months ago now, something.
Yeah, it was
that.
March maybe.
Yeah, a few months ago now. And of course there's going to be a drop off in player numbers because that's how it works. Live service games, I don't know if we've told you this enough, I don't know if we've talked about it, but they never work out quite as well as we think, do they?
Not forever.
And obviously it makes complete sense that the number of people playing Helldivers 2 has dropped off since its release, because there is literally thousands of games coming out all of the time. So of course people are going to go and play something else. But I do think that people take these generic numbers and these very much random stats, and they'll be like, wow, isn't this crazy? And it's purely just to get engagement of just let's find a way to talk about this game, or let's make a news story up, and it'll just be some journalist somewhere's been only 40,000 players, that is, I'm going to say bad today, and then put it up, and then the conversation is started. I never think that these are typically very useful. I think it's kind of funny sometimes when it's a game that's come out and you've been kind of watching it and everyone knows it's going to be bad, and then they're there's only 3 people playing it. I think that's quite funny. But I also do think that sometimes they don't necessarily speak of a game's quality or how much it is worth making a sequel or how well it's done. I feel like Helldivers 2 had such a good launch that it's going to be hard for them to be oh well, this is we've got a bad game, it's a bad game now.
And they set an incredible precedent for how to keep the press engaged as well, teasing things that were coming out and having websites just write articles off their own back rather than being sent press releases. They've really, they've gone through some uncharted territory here and sort of written the book on on a new way to make people really excited and engaged with a live service game. By many metrics, a huge success. So I do think that these statistics are certainly, they can be useful for gauging interest in a title. But they are also 100% often weaponized to further agendas, as you guys have said, of certain people. So in some instances, I'd say that the spreading of this information is actually genuinely helpful to know and interesting, like Concord not doing very well on PC with its beta. That was good to know. And I think the prime example is, do you remember when Babylon's Fall came out and it had one guy playing it?
Yeah.
There was only one person in the entire world playing Babylon's Fall. It wasn't at launch, but just before it was shut down. There was only one person left playing it. That kind of stuff is helpful to know. But often this stuff is, as I said, weaponized for various reasons. So talking about Helldivers 2 specifically, I've got some facts here.
Hit us with it, facts, man.
Here it comes. At its peak, it had 458,709 concurrent players, which is absolutely insane.
Dead game.
That is huge. And so, I mean, that was always going to be a very difficult thing for them to maintain as well. No game can maintain that many players unless you're flipping Fortnite, and you've got all those kids playing. Admittedly, Sony have absolutely tried their best to completely ruin Helldivers' engagement at every step of the way. They've sort of really stuck a spanner in the works many, many times. And because of this 40,000 concurrent players down from 458,000, it's always going to generate headlines, these sorts of stats, because these websites needs clicks. These websites
needs clicks.
And so you get headlines like, where on earth is it? Back in this headline, by the way, was from back in June. This 40,000 players was from back in June, and you can take what you want from that again about the sharing of these statistics, in that these are actually old statistics that are doing the rounds now. So this headline from Forbes read, after initial success, Helldivers 2 has lost 90% of its players with no signs of recovery. Now that's a great headline for getting people to click on your article.
Yeah.
That is not a great headline for maybe representing the success of that title. 40,000 players is still a lot. My Weird News talks about a game that's being played currently that has maybe 16,000 concurrent players, and that means that it's in the top 65 most played games on Steam right now.
Yeah.
The cherry on top of this is that I checked this morning, and Helldivers 2's current players, it may not be at peak times currently at this time in the day, was about 14,000.
Right.
That still puts it in the top 100 most played games on Steam as of right now. That's still arguably a success.
And it's only just on Steam as well. Like, you can't get these stats for Sony
No,
as well,
it doesn't
so-
include PlayStation. So there's two things to take from this. One is that actively out-of-date statistics are being shared currently. It's not even representative. It's actually gotten worse since then. And secondly, 14,000 is still pretty successful. Of course, it's down over 90% now from nearly 500,000 players.
Yeah.
That's a shame. Obviously, Arrowhead and Sony will both be disappointed with that. But that momentum, they were never going to be able to keep that up. I'm not, I don't want to sound like a Helldivers 2 apologist. I enjoyed it from what I played of it, but I didn't play it much.
Yeah.
But I do think that this is an instance where sharing these figures is just people wanting to dunk on stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily a helpful thing to be putting out there, especially if you're saying stuff like, oh, that game is dead. No one's playing it anymore.
And again, I think framing it from a percentage, like saying losing 90% sounds huge.
It's
doesn't it?
really
But
dramatic.
It's, when you look at it, the figures. The other way around as well, like with the crash thing, I just realized I did my maths wrong. I said, oh, it's like going from 1 player to 3,000 players. It's not. Because if you had 1 player and then had 2 players, that's 100% already. So it's like going from 1 player to 28 players is really what's happened there. But yeah, obviously it'll be more than that. More than 1 person was playing it in Trilogy. But yeah, percentages can slightly skew the angle of a headline, I think.
You can make it sound a lot better than it really is.
Facts and figures have and are used like this all the time in every single imaginable spectrum of life to make things look better or worse than they actually are. It's just in this specific example, we're talking about video games. So when you see these facts, it is worth maybe checking them quickly, because the truth could be worse or better than it actually is. But also just be aware that a lot of people want to use these things. Like, a lot of people really dislike Concord and actively want it to fail for one reason or another, and so they will happily share stuff around and go, look at this, only I imagine we'll get some stats about how many people are playing it at launch compared to the beta. It's got 10% fewer players, and even then it didn't have that many players. Like, again, it's useful to know, but you have to be aware of the intent behind the people who are actually sharing it, because it might be overly negative for no reason.
Yeah, and be aware of the context or the trend that would have been predicted no matter what. Like, as we were saying, no one would ever expected Helldivers to maintain the numbers it once had. Of course, it would eventually drop down to having less than 100,000 players, 50,000 players, something like that. If that
entirely normal.
If that was always the plan and is entirely normal, then it's not really a headline, is it?
No. The mission now for them, going back to Helldivers, is to just try and maintain.
Yeah.
And if they can maintain, they'll be fine. I would imagine that's still a lot of players for a live service game.
Yeah.
But there it is. Just make your own mind up about the facts sometimes. Not the facts, about the figures. The facts are the facts. But make your own mind up about the figures sometimes.
I'm choosing that this isn't a fact.
You know what? This isn't actually a fact. I don't like it. Here are
news.
my facts.
Speaking of news and fake news, here's some news that's a bit strange.
And weird.
It's weird news. It's time for weird news. It's weird news time, and right on cue, the hoovering has begun upstairs. So if you hear loud clomping, it's presumably a cleaner falling down the stairs. If you'd like to submit some weird news to us, you can do so under the relevant social media post that goes out on a Tuesday. However, if you'd like, I'm so distracted.
Yeah.
It's so
However,
distracting.
if you'd like to guarantee a shout out at this point in the podcast, you need to go to patreon.com/Team TripleJump, support us at the appropriate tier, and become a podcast producer, just like
Chip Thompson's Thumbs.
GY Goliath.
Nexus Polaris,
Nicole Hansen.
Andy Scott.
Blake Thomas,
Kyle Gary.
Eric Siu.
Great Giggity,
Michael Pendlebury.
Katie Garrett.
Hugh Jas,
Gabrielle Philipping.
And Big Money Bobby Vegas.
And the
Wah.
cleaner who
And the
forced
cleaner.
himself into
Wah,
the podcast
wah.
producer
Yeah.
section.
it sounds like they're moving down the stairs slowly.
Yeah.
Peter, have you got some strange news?
I've got a strange news here from Johnny Mac at JohnnyMac13. It's according to TimeExtension.com, who we've had before. I don't really understand why that is a video games.
Have you not read their stuff before?
I've not read other than weird news that they've done before.
Oh, they're part of the Nintendo Life family.
Yeah,
Random. But they usually do some quite interesting deep dives into some retro stuff like interviews.
yeah. I just don't know why they're called that.
Time
that's all.
extension.
Time
It's a weird
extension.
name.
Oh,
Just
okay. I
sounds
see
like
what you
a-
mean. Right.
Yeah.
Sounds like a stock exchange website.
Yeah.
Or
Time
something,
extension.
or a-
Yeah, I don't. You know
Rolex.
what? I'll ask them. And
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Cool, thanks.
I suppose it's like maybe in a video game you would get a time extension.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I'll
It's a
tell
weird
you
name.
what,
Why are we called Triple
I'm
Jump?
going
is
to text
the real
time
question.
extension right
Dear
now.
time extension.
Anyway, being part of the Nintendo Life family, this article is
Random.
This obscure Mario game copied music from an X-rated film.
What?
It's written by Jack Yarwood. Ralph Bakshi's 1973 film Heavy Traffic, to be exact, is the subheading there.
Saucy.
Oh, explore Cumbria Clearing 2024. Your opportunity
Happy
to join
results
Cumbria.
day,
is here.
everyone. Hope you got the results you wanted.
Yes, we're recording on results day. Best of luck to you. Retrospective, best of luck to you all. People have accused Nintendo's composers of copying from popular music, with notable examples being the similarities between Super Mario World's Overworld theme and the New Christie Minstrel's Green Green, or The Legend of Zelda's Fairy Fountain theme and Tetsuro Yamashita's Morning Glory. But one of the most peculiar examples, in our opinion at least, has to be Mario Artist Paint Studio's copying of Ed Bogus's song Cartoon Time from the 1973 X-rated Ralph Bakshi film Heavy Traffic for one of its 2D painting themes, Cats. Is this a recent
X-rated
story?
porn.
Heavy traffic.
It is a recent story. Heavy Traffic, yeah.
I wonder what that's about.
We should watch it.
You should.
Yeah.
All together. In
Mhm.
the office.
Yeah.
During work hours.
Mario Artist Paint Studio, in case you've never heard of it, is a Japan-exclusive creation/exploration game that was released in 1999 for the 64 Double D,
DD.
a failed
Now we're
subscription-based
talking.
add-on for the Nintendo 64, etc. Due to its UK-based development, it's often at the center of some of the more unusual Mario-related trivia, with data miners finding everything from strange crash messages in its dumped prototype featuring a crudely edited lollipop man to a lot of less than savory language lurking in its debug strings. Recently on Twitter, the popular Mario gimmick account No Context Super Mario brought up the similarity between the Heavy Traffic track and the music from Mario Artist Paint Studio. And strangely enough, it's not the only instance where we've seen it mentioned in the past few weeks. A couple of weeks ago, on July 25th, 2024, the YouTuber Thomas Games Doc uploaded a video called Nintendo Copied, in all caps, this song from a movie. In the video, Thomas Games Docs also detailed this bizarre bit of trivia, highlighting how the game's soundtrack was a collaboration between 3 UK-based composers and the Nintendo musician Kazumi Totaka. Before surmising, it was probably unlikely Totaka would have come across this obscure X-rated animation from the 70s, whereas the British developers had more of a chance of seeing it.
So they just, the song, how did they find that out? They've been watching some cheeky little videos.
Yeah,
Tom
possibly.
Gamer.
I do have embedded YouTube players of both songs here, which we could listen to, but potentially could not broadcast on the
Yeah.
Okay.
podcast for copyright reasons. Do you want me to play it anyway?
Yeah, I mean,
don't
it
know
won't be
what to do
it won't be
about
very
it.
loud, so they won't be able to hear it. We
Okay,
can,
I suppose not.
We talk over it as well. So which one is this?
This is the Paint Studio music.
Okay. I've definitely heard that music before.
And how is this going to be in a porn?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Right, now let's hear it.
Okay, well, it's the same
It's
through
it's
line.
very
It
similar.
is quite
It's the
similar.
same melody, for sure.
I would love to see two people going at it to this music. How
cartoon
bizarre.
people.
Yeah. I think it's just partly a similar chord progression, but yeah. Anyway, it is, as you say, Ben, it's quite a deep dive, this article, or, well, it's not super deep, but it goes on a bit more, but that's the gist of it.
Wow.
Mario seems to have some cartoon porn music in it. Or does it?
Oh,
Does it? I have some news. It was submitted by Amy Wicks on Facebook.
Wicks.
Top fan,
Top
no relation.
Well, she is a relation to Janet Wicks.
That's true.
So,
It comes from GamesPot, written by Lan Pitts. Randy Pitchford's...
Lan Pitts.
That is the name.
that's a Star Wars character.
Randy Pitchford's reaction to Borderlands flopping might be the funniest thing about the movie.
Oh,
The game developer and CEO has been having a tough time, but tried to find the silver lining with all the Borderlands reviews.
We didn't wear our Randy shirts, did we? We were
Oh,
going to do
god
that.
damn it, we forgot to. It's
Yeah.
literally, we were talking, I have Randy Pitchford's shirt, as we know.
Yeah.
And I was like, Borderlands the other day, I was like, oh man, I should have worn my Randy shirt. And we were like, we'll wear it for the review. And then we forgot.
Yeah.
It hadn't yet crossed my mind, actually. I wonder how Randy's doing in the wake of this.
Well, let me
film
tell
review.
you.
Yeah.
You might have heard that Borderlands movie isn't going great. We didn't think so either, both at the box office and with the critics. However, the person who probably took it the worst wasn't the cast and crew, it was Randy Pitchford, president and CEO of Gearbox, the company where the Borderlands game originated, with another on the way, apparently. Pitchford's response seemed like in good stride, even saying he was flattered. This is his tweet now. So what you're saying is, you like what my friends and I do with our Borderlands video games, even more than you like what some of the biggest and best cast and crew of the filmmakers on the planet have done, he tweeted. I'm super flattered. We're working extra hard for you on what's next.
We're better than crap.
That sort of positivity was pretty funny as bad video game adaptations happen. But Pitchford's response hid the fact that he was on a blocking spree. Pitchford blocked people who talked down about the movie, but incidentally also colossal Borderlands fans and streamers. The Pitchford backpedaled a bit and apologised to some of those he blocked, citing Flipnuts accounts threatening violence. I've met Borderlands streamer Killer 6 in person and maybe popular streamer Epic as well. These are context clues from the article. Thank you so much for the heads up. This was a mistake and I fixed it, he replied to fans asking on why he was blocking fans. I made at least one other mistake. Dude reached out with a different account. If you hear of any other mistakes, let me know. I'm blocking some people who've been mean, nasty, and threatening violence. Some crazy mother flippers on Twitter. Forbes video game journalist Paul Tassi also caught some heat when Pitchford blocked, unblocked, and then blocked again, seemingly over a short time. Pitchford apologised again and even praised Tassi and did a plug for his book. He hasn't posted about the movie since the weekend, but added some final thoughts. The money surrounding the movie is the movie studio's risk, so I'm not really affected by that. Except that if the studio loses money, it may not want to make another movie, which would be a shame. He
Yeah, I
posted
think
on
that's
social
unlikely.
media. And yeah, the Borderlands movie is out now.
So the first thing we have to remember is that Randy Pitchford is a real human man.
Yeah.
And he probably has been going through the ringer a bit on social media recently. So his actions, while erratic, might be understandable to a certain degree.
Hey, I mean, definitely block people who are threatening violence to you.
Absolutely.
Like, anyone should be doing that.
just like the tweet of like, hey, well, if you like, it must mean that we're better than the movie studios then.
But that's the main thing, though. That tweet
It's
is not
so
only,
funny.
as you said, well, I suppose. So what you're saying is you like our thing better than absolute rubbish. That's great. But also, he's just like, to use wrestling parlance, buried everyone he's worked with in that industry that he's previously had no experience with in one tweet. They've all probably got their heads in their hands as well, like, oh God, this is a disaster. And then Randy's like, well, I suppose our games are better. So what you're saying is you love our games? That's so flattering. Thank you. That's not what we were saying.
No, that's not Randy. Randy, no.
Oh dear.
It's a bit like...
Why won't they make another one?
It doesn't mean the same thing, but it's the sort of the level of logic feels like a child at school saying, "I know you are, but what am I?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
say that I am. I said that you are. You know, you're just putting words in.
Takes one to know
Oh
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so you must really like us then, because I know that you like the film. No.
No.
Those are two divorced facts
Yeah.
that you have connected.
Yeah.
Poor Andy. Just make a better movie next time. That's.
I think they shouldn't. Make
Or
it.
or just
next
don't.
time.
Just
Don't do it.
Actually,
next time.
I would like them to make another one.
Yeah, can you please?
With half the budget,
Yeah.
none of the same cast.
And more loud shirts.
5 directors this time. Let's
Five
just
di-
get higher and
yeah,
higher.
yeah. How
Yeah.
many directors can we have in a movie?
And instead of filming a bunch of R-rated scenes that have to be cut out, film a bunch of X-rated scenes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then
And
use
then
the
use
Mario
the
Paint
music
music.
from Mario.
Wah, wah, wah. Brilliant. That's very strange.
Yeah.
My weird news comes from 2 people on Twitter, Gex at SnowyBoyYanni04 and Aaron Pristelski at Aaron Pristelski. Sorry, not Pristelski. This is an article from Kotaku.com. You can spell that phonetically. It's like 18 syllables.
Yeah.
By Zach Sveisen. Valve's yet to be announced multiplayer game already has thousands of players on Steam. Wow.
Woo! How did they know about it?
More than Helldivers.
Officially, Valve, the company behind Steam, Half-Life and more, has yet to announce its next big game. However, thousands of people are currently playing and posting about Deadlock, Valve's next big game, literally right now. So, what's going on? Thanks to leakers and data miners, we've... Get out of here, pop-up. We've no...
Oh, sorry, that's me talking there.
Just play a recording
your
of
own
yourself.
video.
10 more. I'm just scrolling through Facebook to make sure no one's... I forgot to check Facebook for my story. Sorry, please continue. 10 more.
Thanks to leakers and data miners, we've known about a Valve-developed multiplayer game for a few years now. Before it was Deadlock, it was likely codenamed Neon Prime. At one point since it reportedly started development in 2018, the MOBA/character shooter hybrid was possibly going to be set in the Half-Life and Portal universe, but that has seemingly changed based on gameplay leaks that occurred in May. Now, it seems a rumored playtest for Deadlock is currently underway, with the game developing a community of players on Reddit. As spotted by IGN over on SteamDB, a third-party website that tracks various stats about games and players, Deadlock's player count has been steadily increasing over the last few months. In the last few days, the game cracked 18,000 concurrent players. Wow. That means it's one of the top 65 most played games on Steam, and Valve has yet to even tweet about it or release a trailer. Continue reading. I have to click that, apparently. IGN...
So, how are people playing it? Like,
So this
there's
is...
a
It sounds like that this is a playtest.
Plays like a closed thing.
But it's not formally announced, but it's still visible on Steam's back end.
I see,
So
right,
everyone knows that it exists and can see that it
It's
exists.
being done in an official capacity via Valve.
I
think
see.
they're recruiting.
But they haven't
players.
officially announced it.
No.
yet.
Okay.
But everyone knows about it.
I was confused.
It's a lot of players for a playtest.
Yeah, it is a lot. Yeah.
IGN reports that Deadlock's current early access period is using an invite system, letting players on Steam grant access to other players. There we go. It's understood that Valve is allowing players with early access to talk about the game online with other players, but videos and screenshots still seem to be under a strict NDA. Many are posting about the game and how much they like it on the Deadlock the Game subreddit.
How do you police an NDA if people are able to just invite their friends?
You can't.
No.
You're just going to
And
have
that's
to
why everyone's posting it.
Yeah.
slap loads of,
Copyright.
Yeah, exactly. That means we're in a really weird and somewhat unprecedented situation. A new Valve video game is gaining thousands of players on Steam, it's got an active subreddit, and we've even seen videos of the game in action. Deadlock is real. It's a thing. It's Valve's next game, yet officially, Valve has yet to announce it or even tease it. Many players assume that a full-on reveal for Deadlock and an open access beta are coming sooner rather than later, with many suggesting September. But for now, we have to wait and see when Valve will decide Valve will decide to announce a game that thousands of people are playing and which already has guides and tier rankings. Strange times.
Indeed.
Meanwhile, Valve might be working on Half-Life 3 based on some recent leaks.
No, they're
Right.
not. Let's not
Everyone
let's
says
not
that all
get
the
everyone
time.
excited again.
Hopes down, everyone. Hopes
Please.
down.
It doesn't
Well-
look like anyone sent the Mario story on Facebook, so you were interrupted by autoplay for no reason.
10 more.
10 more, whatever it was.
And there we are. That's my weird news.
Ah.
Wonderful.
And that was weird news.
Yeah.
And now it is the big discussion. It's big discussion time. Time for the big video game discussion that this week comes courtesy of Josh Lees, who says, "Hey, Bap.
Hi.
Hello.
Tango Gameworks has been purchased by PUBG publisher Krafton. They mention wanting to continue the Hi-Fi Rush IP. More games sounds like a great idea, but does this alarm you given it's a publisher of a live service game? Cheers, Josh Lees.
Cheers, Josh Lees.
Cheers, Josh Lees.
I have a write-up, but
Of course you do.
well, yeah, because I want to give context. But straight off the bat, I didn't even know this was actually a thing that could happen. And
No.
what wonderful news
and
it
they
is.
hired all the staff back.
That's great. On the surface, lovely. We'll talk about our feelings in a second.
Yeah.
For God's sake, Jess Weatherbed at The Verge wrote this, not Jesh. I don't know who Jesh is. Hi-Fi Rush developer Tango Gameworks has been spared closure 3 months after Microsoft announced plans to shut down the studio. Krafton, the South Korean publisher behind PUBG Battlegrounds and the Calistoni Protocoloni, announced on Monday that it had acquired the game and its Japanese studio and is working with Xbox to enable a smooth transition to ensure the Tango Gameworks team can continue developing the Hi-Fi Rush IP and explore future projects.
It must be so confusing thinking you've lost your job and
Yeah.
and then something like 3 months later they're like, what if?
Not.
No.
Yeah.
What if it was fine? Microsoft had initially announced in May that it was closing Tango Gameworks alongside Redfall developer Arcane Austin and Mighty Doom developer
Crazy
Alpha
no one's
Dog
bought
Studios.
Arcane Austin.
3 studios it inherited after acquiring ZeniMax in 2021. The impending Tango Gameworks closure was widely criticized by the gaming community at the time, as Hi-Fi Rush had won several awards during the 2023 to 2024 awards season. The value of the deal has not been disclosed. Hi-Fi Rush was the only Tango IP mentioned in Krafton's announcement, so it's unclear if Microsoft is relinquishing the rights to the studio's other franchises like The Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo. We have reached out to Krafton for clarification. The PUBG owner says the acquisition won't impact the availability of Tango Gameworks' existing game catalogue. They also say it will support the Tango Gameworks team to deliver fresh and exciting experiences for fans, which means we may yet see the rumoured Nintendo Switch Hi-Fi Rush port that never materialised, or possibly even sequels to the game. What do you think, Peter?
Well, in answer to Josh Lee's question, my main contribution to the discussion, which you've already done now, was going
Good
to be...
one.
Sorry.
Thanks for that, for providing information.
Sorry.
Was going to be, hey, Josh, I've got good news and bad news. Krafton don't only do live service games. That's good news. The bad news is the main example of the non-live service game they made is the Calistoni Protocoloni, which,
Hey,
all right,
we had a great time with that.
we had a pretty good time. It wasn't terrible,
it
but
wasn't.
there was just an
great.
awful lot of jam.
You just had to wobble about all over.
Yeah,
and then it ended strangely, didn't it? Oh yeah, I forgot
It
about the
ended
dodging.
so strange.
I
Yeah.
didn't see the ending. I'm gutted about that.
Oh, were you
We're
not
going to
there
have
for
to
that?
do... No, I
Did
missed
you
that
miss it?
stream. We're
No.
going to have to do a full playthrough again.
Hey, you could just watch the video.
Nope.
Nope. VOD's channel
Nope.
now
Full
available.
playthrough. Full playthrough.
So they're not just because it's been taken on by Krafton. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be turning it into some sort of live service horror if they bring out a new game. I suppose they could do that. They might look at that world and think, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if this, but
Jam.
16 players
But marmalade."
and jam?" Yeah. So it's certainly a possibility, but I would like to think that they will do the sensible thing, and for a start, release it on Nintendo Switch if that's possible for them to do, and then look at potentially doing a sequel. So many people were livid when we heard the news that there wouldn't be a sequel, or that the studio was being sold or closed down.
Including
Closed down.
us. We were also livid.
We were one of those livid people. So it's great news to hear that they've been brought back from the brink, and time will only tell what is going to happen there. But I think the sensible thing to do would be to release on Switch and then potentially look into doing a sequel. And this is the good thing about the staff being hired back, because if they just had the IP, but we're then like, we're going to do a sequel now with our team, it could come out looking like something completely different. It might be awful. We've seen this in the past with IP that has transferred over and a sequel has been made for a certain game, but the entire team is different and they do not have the same spirit or the same knowledge as those who made it in the first place. So the important part of this is that a lot of the staff are back. So a sequel could potentially be very much true to the spirit of the original.
I think this is great. Not to quote Tony the Tiger.
Big Tony the Tiger
Great.
fan.
Yeah.
I think this is fantastic news, and it was great to hear that so many of the employees have kept their jobs at Tango. I think that we often talk about like studios buying other like IPs or other studios and going like, oh well, they're most famous for this thing, but we shouldn't nobody puts studios in a box. They can do whatever they want to do, unless they're Bungie, in which case I would just assume they're just making more Destiny. But I think it's really interesting to see that Krafton have bought these guys, and I would love to see more of what Tango Gameworks can do, even if it's outside of Hi-Fi Rush. Obviously, we don't know if the other IPs have come with them, which would be interesting considering that Krafton's last game was a horror game, and they now maybe own other horror IPs, which would be great to see like what they do with those. But I just think that like Tango Gameworks obviously got a lot of talent under their belt. We can see that from Hi-Fi Rush. Like, it was such an interesting like game and a real breath of fresh air when it came to the games that were coming out of Xbox last year. So I do think that this is really like great news, and I'm really excited to see what they do with it. I think that maybe they've kind of like two teams that could probably help each other out quite a lot. Like, I feel like maybe Krafton need a little bit of help with curating a story and finishing it up. And I also would like to see what Tango can do with perhaps more realistic stories and perhaps more realistic graphics, which is what Krafton do really well with like PUBG and stuff. So yeah, I would love to see what they do with this, and I think it's great news, and I think that everyone should be happy. So there. Be happy
I think
about
Krafton have actually published a few things since Callisto
Yeah, they
Protocol,
probably
like
have.
little like smaller projects
Bits
that
and
weren't
pieces,
as
yeah.
that was the last major thing. You're
Yeah.
right.
I do wonder what Striking Distance, the developer of Callisto Protocol, is up to these days, because they had layoffs last year, and I don't know what state they're in at the moment. And I do wonder if there is scope, especially as you say, you know, they have horror IP in house.
Yeah.
I wonder if there might be some crossover between the studios where they
Yeah.
could potentially work together on stuff. Although Shinji Mikami has now gone, and he was very much spearheading the Evil Within and stuff like that. So yeah, just to reiterate my point, I didn't even know that this was actually possible.
No.
That I thought this was just done. Like it was a write-off. I wasn't even aware that the studio was still operating, or that the staff was still there.
But I suppose they were like, we're closing the studio, but they probably would have been the time
period,
frame
a process,
before like
yeah.
it closes on, you know, July 25th, and then it's like, okay, so we have 3 months to get our lives
that's
together
fair.
and figure it out. So I assume that, but I would never have thought that like, oh, we're closing this studio. Someone could have been, no, hold on, we'll buy them instead. I would have assumed that Microsoft would have asked.
Yeah,
or
it makes you
shopped
think like,
around.
You
yeah,
shopped around a bit beforehand.
Has this not been happening with all these studios that have been closed down? Has no one
Are
at
they
least
just
offered?
closing them?
Yeah.
Are they not even bothering to like ask if anyone wants to buy them?
It's also interesting that Microsoft is not interested in holding on to the Hi-Fi Rush IP either. That they wouldn't want to use that and the goodwill or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's very heartening to hear that they have managed to hold on to, or they want to bring over as many staff as possible. But it still begs the question, how many of the staff, upon hearing the news, just left?
Yeah.
And just like, are they getting the full team? Because there've got to be some people who've gone.
Yeah,
I would
sure.
imagine that given it's a Japanese studio, and we already know, like from some of the promotional videos and stuff, that not everyone there is a Japanese native. I would imagine maybe that some of the expats
The Western devs, have gone maybe.
come back.
So yeah, well, that's something to bear in mind as well. As far as I'm concerned, the best case scenario is that Krafton are a publisher of live service games, and they have admittedly had one rather disastrous high-profile single-player game, and that they're just looking to get like a crown jewel studio to produce single-player IP that's already got a built-in audience and the rapt attention of the internet gaming sphere and press and stuff like that. So whatever they make, they're going to get headlines, and they're going to get people maybe even just trying to support it, even if they're not interested, because they like the story of Tango, and they want to see them do well. Worst case scenario is that Hi-Fi Rush is resurrected in a manner that nobody wants, and it is a complete flip show. But the people who previously stood to lose their jobs have employment for at least the next few years, and that's still a pretty good worst case scenario.
Hi-Fi
really.
Rush is not a prominent enough IP to have like a multiplayer spin-off. I
wouldn't
don't
have
think.
thought so.
No, certainly not yet.
And not with, and I think like the way that Hi-Fi Rush works with the the beat mechanic would not make for a very good multiplayer game.
Yeah, imagine
No.
trying to play that
Everyone's
over
trying
the
to hit
internet.
at
with
the same
lag,
time.
Yeah.
even streaming that game through, cloud gaming would
Yeah.
be a bit of a nightmare. But
Yeah.
when Tango Gameworks is put to work as a PUBG support studio, then
Yeah.
that will be the nail in the coffin. But until then, the human cost of this was the real headline, and it wasn't fair.
No.
And these people now have a lifeline, and if that's, even if they end up making something totally dreadful that no one wants at the behest of Krafton, at least those people have employment, and that's something.
Well, yeah, I mean, you make the point that, will they end up getting put on PUBG or something? For those who aren't that familiar with Krafton and maybe only know about PUBG and Callisto Protocol, apparently, according to Wikipedia, they have over 3,500 employees and like over a dozen subsidiaries. So there's PUBG Studios, Bluehole, Dream Motion, Unknown Worlds Entertainment, Neon Giant, all kinds of, it's a holding company as much as a publisher. And there are a bunch of defunct subsidiaries as well, which presumably have been closed down and dissolved over the years for various reasons. So I wouldn't say Tango are out of the woods yet. I mean, I imagine at least for the time being they'll be okay, because why would you buy something and then dissolve it?
Yeah.
So they'll be good for now, but hopefully they can be given the chance to do something great in kind of from the outset, and maybe do some more Hi-Fi Rush or make their own project and prove themselves worthy of being their own entity and continue to like work on their own stuff rather than be put on PUBG support. Or something.
It's very much one mega publisher to another, but at the very least, the jobs are secure for now, and that is something to be celebrated short term. We'll see long term. We'll see what they work on next, and hopefully it's something good. Let us know what you made of everything we discussed today. We'd be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for listening. There's a few places around the internet you can find us. I don't know if you know them. Peter's going to tell you a couple now.
Yeah, if you don't know them, they are youtube.com and twitch.tv/Team TripleJump. All of our videos, of course, go out on YouTube, and most of our streams happen on Twitch, but occasionally special ones on YouTube, like Opening Night Live. And if you've got Amazon Prime, you're paying for our whole bundle of things, including a Twitch sub, so you can redeem the Twitch sub against our channel, get all the benefits of being a subscriber, but at no extra cost if you're paying for Prime.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, on all of which we are at Team TripleJump. And if you would like to support us, it's patreon.com/Team TripleJump.
TripleJump is our website. That's where you can find links to every single thing that we do. And why not leave a 5-star review on your platform of choice? It helps something to do with Al Gore's rhythms, and we'd really appreciate that. Thank you so much, everyone. Just enough time to hear this week's sponsor again, please, Ashton.
Of course, it's that time of year again. They're all there, and they're going to fight to the death. There may only be one. It's Gamescom 2024.
Whoa, com is short
hope-
for combat.
I hope R1 wins.
Yeah.
If he didn't,
I've got 20 quid on
that
Jenkins.
would be really bad.
Well, we've got backup James, haven't we?
That's
We're on like
true.
our third or fourth James.
Yeah.
Oh, way
yeah,
more than that,
so
I think. Yeah,
that-
the farm.
We're sending this one out. The prospects aren't good.
No.
If he doesn't come back, we'll have another one.
We'll have another one,
We'll
that's
have another
fine.
one ready to go, so it's fine. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye.